All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the media briefing today. We're in a little bit of different room, so sorry I'm a little late because I had to get the viewer going in a different location. So again, thanks for joining us. We've got a lot of people on the agenda today, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I don't know if Jonathan Pangburn from CAL FIRE is on the call. I am not seeing his, unless there's a number he's on that I don't recognize. Jonathan, are you on the call yet? So I am not seeing him yet, so we'll try to get back with him, but I see John Ramirez is with us, and he's on our schedule for today talking about administrative fines. John, can you start us off?
Thank you, Maya. Yes, I can start off. I just wanted to update everybody on what environmental health is doing as far as the enforcement of the new urgency ordinance passed by the Board of Supervisors on July 28th. So the urgency ordinance allows us to enforce the state guidance on the wearing of face coverings in Monterey County in the unincorporated area of the county. So that's the important part of this urgency ordinance is we're not enforcing it within the cities, municipalities, but in the incorporated areas of the Monterey County. What we're going to be doing, environmental health, as I mentioned before, enforces about or regulates about 6,000 businesses in Monterey County. About 2,300 of those facilities are in the unincorporated county of areas of Monterey County. Those range anywhere from food facilities, industrial operations, and agricultural operations. In addition to that, the urgency ordinance, we would be enforcing the wearing of face coverings on the areas that we don't regulate, like a clothing store, a hardware store, or something similar to that, which is out of our regulatory authority. And also we'll be enforcing it with the general public who may frequent any of these businesses as we're doing our education and outreach. So those are 2,300 facilities, and the other facilities, we're going to be using our staff to go out there sort of in this process of doing area education. We're going to be beginning in the first week of September, going through Castroville and Moss Landing, along with 2 people that we're going to be hiring that are law enforcement or former law enforcement that we're going to hire as temporary staff. Those 2 will be focusing on doing the education and outreach to the general public and those non-regulated facilities. And we will be doing the same at all the regulated facilities within Castroville. Again, our focus is going to be education and outreach to get people to understand the importance of wearing face coverings while they're in businesses and in the process of operating their business. So we'll be focused on Moss Landing, Castroville initially. And also in that other facet is that agricultural operations. We're going to be focusing on agricultural operations with a team of 5 people who are going to be contacting the Farm Bureau, the Growers Shipper Association, and we have a list of labor contractors who operate in the unincorporated areas. We're going to be contacting them to offer education and training to the farm operations or the contractors about the importance of wearing face coverings. So the purpose is to do that again for outreach and education before we look towards any enforcement by issuing administrative citations. Administrative citations is our enforcement component under the urgency ordinance under existing Monterey County Code, Chapter 1.22. That allows the issuance of administrative citations for first violation of $100, second violation of $200, and the third of $500. And if a continued non-compliance exists, then we would inform that person or operation of enforcement through that code section through administrative law judge. So that is the process how we have it laid out. Our goal is not to issue citations, but to get compliance through the education and outreach that we plan. We'll be successful by the few citations that we have to issue and getting general compliance. So again, compliance is the focus that we're trying to do this with. We will also be taking calls from the public for complaints After we do Castroville or Moss Landing, we'll be going to Carmel Valley, which has a large amount of businesses out there that we regulate, and then probably on the peninsula, some areas out there, and then Big Sur. But then we're going to be going to the Salinas Valley after we have initial rollout of that education outreach with agriculture. And then we'll be focused on ag sites, the farm operations, labor contractors, and any of the community that we find out there not wearing face coverings. Again, doing education and outreach. We're going to have multiple attempts to educate the businesses and the public. If we find somebody not wearing a mask, we're going to inform them of the purpose of wearing the mask and then provide them a mask. If they say they cannot wear a mask because of medical conditions, we're going to be providing them a face shield during the initial contact we have with those people and the businesses. So we're going to make, again, the effort to educate and to give them face coverings as needed to wear while they're in public. So if during this whole time we get calls from the public of a complaint, we'll be responding on a complaint basis and be tracking staff going out there and addressing the complaints as we receive them. So that's kind of a brief and really quick outline of what we're doing, and open for any questions if you have them.
Thank you very much, John. If you would stay on the call for questions after all of our presenters have finished. We're going to stay on the health topic with Karen Smith from the Health Department, our PIO there, who's going to talk a little bit about heat safety, which is still a continuing issue.
So good morning or good afternoon. I don't have to tell you it's hot. And the farther into this heat event, the more dangerous it becomes. So I want to remind everybody to drink plenty of water. You don't necessarily have to drink sports drinks or those other other sort of things that have the electrolytes, but plenty of plain, cool water. And again, I talked about this on Friday. Avoid caffeine, large amounts of sugar and alcohol because they aren't helping you any. Just staying out of the direct heat's a good idea. Keep an eye out for our cooling centers. Do what you can. And maybe most importantly, beyond the water, is to check on each other. Make sure your older neighbor is okay and that the kids are drinking enough water. Popsicles are good. It doesn't matter how old you are. Popsicles or our friends, the Otter Pops, are good for you. Not good for you, but they'll help keep your core temperatures down. And if you have to be out, now is not the time to be out here at noon when it's the hottest. Just a reminder again, drink water. If you need help remembering, water every half hour. And don't leave anyone, again, be very aware when you lock the car to check the back seat. Make sure that, because we are so distracted with everything that's going on, understandably. We have a fire, we have COVID, and we have this heat, all of which combines to make us very distracted. So check the cars, don't leave anybody in the car, even for a minute, and stay safe out there.
Thank you very much, Karen. Now we're turning to our Undersheriff, John Minot, who is going to give us an update on COVID in the jail. Good afternoon, Undersheriff.
Good afternoon, everybody. We had a really good weekend. We're still working close with the health department and still putting a lot of people through testing, which is great. We really appreciate all the work from our partners at Public Health to try and get these tests in and out, and really it's a crucial part of helping us manage the inmate population and try and keep people in different quarters. It's also an important piece for our workforce because we've had a number of employees that have tested positive as well. So over the weekend we tested 101 people and only had 2 positive tests, which is a great number. Just to remind everybody, for the month of July, we tested a total of 888 inmates, had 275 positive, running at almost a 31% infection rate. So far for the month of August, we've tested 361 with only 19 positive, or a 5.26% infection rate. So those are great numbers. The active cases continue to decline. We're down to 91 active cases in custody. And I just want to remind everybody, that's a combination of two factors. One, as people reach their out date and leave custody, we don't have any ability to track those folks. But the people that stay in custody, and as the virus runs its course and they get over it, then they end up on our recovered list. But it's a combination of recoveries and releases that impacts ultimately the total number of active cases in the jail. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions. I see some coming up on the text line, so I'll start typing responses to those.
All right, thanks very much, Under Sheriff. And I'm still not seeing our CAL FIRE representative on the call. So if he is able to join us, we'll certainly go to him, but we'll go ahead and start with questions now. And our first question has to do with COVID, and I'm not sure anyone is on the call that can answer this question regarding the digital campaign. Asking about whether the campaign is effective. I'll go ahead and I don't have anyone on the call actually to answer this question. So for the reporter that asked this, I'm going to go ahead and forward this right after the call is over and try to get a response for you. Moving on to our next question, also about the digital campaign, and I'm going to go ahead and forward that one. On to face coverings. Face coverings have already been required for months, and educational efforts have as well. And I thought the July 28th ordinance was to give enforcement efforts some teeth. So why more education instead of enforcement? I think this is for you, John Ramirez.
Yeah, and to respond, the Environmental Health Bureau does not enforce the face coverings in the cities or in the county. So it took an urgency ordinance for us to go out there and to issue citations if necessary. And again, we inspect, as I noted, about 6,000 facilities in the county, and the majority of these facilities are compliant. So those are the ones we regulate. The emphasis now with the additional staff we'll be hiring is those facilities that we don't regulate or we don't visit as part of our inspections. So is it too late? I don't know, because we don't go out to those other facilities, but I do know that the facilities we have regulated are in general compliance, and we're making the focus to try to ensure that they continue that.
May, if I could also add in there, this is Charles McKee. You know, we want to get people to comply because the best evidence right now is that facial coverings is a very effective method to slow the spread of COVID-19. And the idea isn't trying to just go out there and get to do enforcement for enforcement's sake. It's to get people to recognize the importance and get compliance with using face coverings. So if enforcement becomes necessary as a tool to make that happen, as using the citation process, that's something we will do. But the focus on education is to try to get compliance. And if the compliance isn't working through education, then we'll move it up to the enforcement side.
Thanks very much, Charles, for jumping in. John, do you want to add anything to that?
I just want to add that also that, despite the information by the media or Facebook or the websites or even the TV and radio, there are many people out there who are unaware of the requirements because they don't have access to TVs, radios, or even can read in any language. So our focus is not only communicating to those people that are businesses operate, but people in general who may not even be aware of what the local ordinances requires.
Right, thank you. And I have another question for you, John. Is there a particular reason you're starting with Castroville and Moss Landing and then heading to Carmel Valley, Big Sur, and then the Salinas Valley? Can you explain your strategy?
So the strategy is based on the facilities that we regulate. Castroville has the highest number of facilities that we regulate. And that because we're going to be in that area, we'll do Moss Landing and Pajaro. Carmel Valley has a second highest number of facilities that we regulate. So we'll be going out in those areas. And because we have a high number of facilities we regulate, it's also coincides with other industry or operations that also, a shopping center will have food facilities. We'll also have clothing stores. So the numbers also kind of correlate to the number of places we'll be visiting. So it's based on the businesses that we regulate more than anything else.
Thank you. And then I have another question for you. And if Charles is still on the call, he may want to jump in on this one as well. Did the county's Boots on the Ground campaign to inform people and businesses the importance of wearing face coverings come too late? Should this have begun earlier?
I think I answered most of that earlier, but
Okay. Anything you want to add on that one?
I just want to say that since March, the concern about wearing face masks, we have addressed it when we do go out there to the regulated facilities. And even on the unregulated facilities, we had tried to provide education, but really nothing to help us, support us in trying to reinforce that. With the administrative citation process, it does give us that, and it does give us the information to give the incentive to the people to comply, where before it was, we told them to comply and they could ignore us. Now with multiple visits to try to continue to educate them, try to continue to comply, they'll understand that non-compliance has a consequence.
Thank you for that. The next question is about,
Sorry,
go ahead,
man.
Charles, please.
I think the other piece of that is that before the board adopted the ordinance, the method for enforcement was the criminal prosecution side of it with a misdemeanor. And I think it's important to recognize that by adopting this ordinance by the Board of Supervisors, it gives steps to the enforcement piece. In other words, I think a lot of people recognize that going straight to a misdemeanor for failing to wear a mask might be too extreme. Now, maybe it's not, because of the overall threat of COVID-19. But we thought it was important to give us another tool, which is the citation process that Mr. Ramirez has been talking about. That's a step below doing a law enforcement arrest for a misdemeanor.
Right. Thanks for that additional information. I have a question here about repeating the jail test numbers. Those numbers are in the chat for people who want those numbers. And the next question's for me. I sent out a list of cooling centers on Friday. Are those locations still accurate? We will be updating that information. The cooling centers that we referred to, some are closed and some are by request. So we'll update those after the briefing this afternoon. Then I see a question. Let's move on to other questions. This is for John Ramirez, how much of an issue is face coverings in unincorporated areas? On the peninsula, it seems residents mostly comply and visitors who are more of an issue.
In the unincorporated areas, I think we've seen, or the numbers have shown that possibly there's a large population that are not wearing masks, and that's the reason that maybe one of the reasons why COVID is still spreading. So we want to make sure that the public understands that not only when you're at work or at some event, that the importance of wearing a mask will help prevent the spread of COVID. So there are visitors who do go to South Monterey County. I mean, there's places there's campgrounds and places in there, but there's also businesses that they frequent. So I believe it's just as important in the Salinas Valley as the peninsula. And the public in the cities who visit, like the wharf, is being addressed by the cities themselves.
All right, thanks very much, John. There was a question for Under Sheriff Minot about any further hospitalizations. That answer is in chat, that there was one additional hospitalization for a total of 5. And I'm going to go back to our first question because Dr. Moreno has joined us on the call and he's available to answer some questions. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to our questions about the outreach campaign and more focused on the health aspect, has Monterey County Health and other departments done all they can to help stop the infection rates in those areas? If not, what else specifically could the county be doing to help control the epidemic?
Okay. Hey, Mia. Good
Hi,
afternoon.
good afternoon. Thanks for
I'm-
joining us.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question about areas. Were there particular areas of concern?
So the question is regarding the outreach campaign that the county has been doing. But however, we're still seeing a rise in cases, particularly in Salinas and the Salinas Valley. And the reporter is wondering, has the health department or other departments done all they can to help stop the infection rates in those areas? And if not, what else specifically could the county be doing to help control the epidemic?
Okay. So with regards to, thank you. So with regards to the pandemic, I think the health department and other departments have been and continue to do what we can we can't stop the pandemic, but we're trying to slow down the spread of and transmission of the virus. So that's really what we're trying to achieve throughout everything that we're talking about today and been talking about for the last few months. Face coverings, distance, keeping 6 feet distance, washing hands, staying home. So I think the county departments have been doing what we can, but a lot of this also really depends on people who can work and visit Monterey County. People abiding, the more that people abide by the infection prevention measures and strategies that are in place in the workplaces, at businesses, in other public settings, the better success we'll have together as a community in slowing down the spread of and transmission. As far as doing more, I think from a public health perspective, we're still conducting case investigations and contact tracing. And we did, as I mentioned Friday, we had about 2,400 total test results reported to us. Of those, about 600 were positive tests and about 1,800 were negative tests. We've been able to process all of the negative tests, and we've processed about 80% of the positive tests, meaning because we have to make sure that there are no duplications. There are some duplications. We have to find those duplications and remove those duplications. So we're about 80% done with that. But we are still receiving some cases back to July 3rd. And so some of those are going to have to be lower priority. So in terms of what we continue to do is we continue to take in the cases as reported to us, whether they be on time or delayed through CalReady. And if there's still an opportunity, we'll to intervene and speak with the person who's had a confirmed case of COVID-19. We'll continue to do that. And as we continue to hire more staff, so what more can the health department do? We are hiring more staff. We've brought on 3 more supervisors, part-time supervisors, to supervise the contact tracing staff. We've got several people who passed some initial screenings for who want to be hired on a part-time basis, extra help to be trained to do contact tracing. So we've got approximately, all folks consider, we've got probably up to about 80 individuals who are involved with or supporting of case investigation and contact tracing in the health department. So we are doing more, and we'll continue to do more to slow down the spread of COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Dr. Moreno. And here's a question for you, fire related. What would you say to fire evacuees who may be worried about using an emergency evacuation center or shelter amid COVID-19?
I would say that they should heed recommendations from our responding fire crews and heed recommendations from the Office of Emergency Services.
All right, thank you very much. That is all the questions that we have. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing anyone from CAL FIRE who is able to join us. I'm sorry about that. If there are any other questions for any of our presenters, I'll give a moment here for any last questions. Then that will wrap up the briefing, and our next briefing will be Friday, and we'll see you then.